All right, let's talk about the future of investing. Because honestly, the old rules, they just don't apply anymore. We're going to chart a course into what I'm calling the 2026 investment frontier. So let me ask you something right off the bat. Think about your portfolio for a second. Is it, well, is it kind of stuck in the past? Is it really built for what's coming, or is it designed for a world that's already fading away? It's a really important question because, believe me, the ground is shifting right under our feet. And this slide, it just lays it out perfectly. I mean, for years, the winning playbook was so simple, right? You just bet on a few of the huge US tech giants and you were golden. But the 2026 frontier, that requires a totally different map. We're talking about a major shift from one concentrated bet to a whole world of diverse global opportunities. So yeah, that brings us right here, a new investment frontier. Let's dive into our first section, because this is where we really break down how the fundamental rules of the game are being rewritten, like right now. Okay, so what is this new frontier I keep talking about? Well, to put it simply, it's a whole new economic environment. And it's not just one thing. It's really the convergence of three huge, powerful forces. We've got massive shifts in technology, we've got changing interest rates, and we've got global markets opening up way beyond the usual suspects. And what's so fascinating is how these three core shifts all connect and feed off each other. First up, AI is finally maturing. You know, it's moving beyond just software and into the physical world. We're talking actual robots, smart infrastructure, that kind of stuff. Then you've got central banks all over the world cutting interest rates, and that completely changes the flow of money. And finally, when you put those two together, you get this broadening market with incredible opportunities popping up way outside of just Silicon Valley. Okay, so that naturally leads us to our next big question. If the whole landscape is changing, then what we're trying to achieve as investors, well, that has to change too. So what's the new goal? What should our mission objectives look like now? And this table just nails it. Look, your goal can't just be growth anymore. It's so much more nuanced. It's about smart diversification, spreading your risk out to new places like India and Japan, and into different sectors like healthcare and defense. It's also about generating real, reliable income from things like bonds and dividend stocks. And you gotta protect yourself from inflation, right? So that means looking at real assets, infrastructure, energy. And finally, it's about capturing that next wave of innovation, but not just software. We're talking about companies that are using AI to build physical products. All right, so we've covered the what. Now let's get into the why. For this next part, we're going to map out the territory and really dig into the powerful forces that are shaping this whole new 2026 landscape. So the biggest engine driving all of this is something called monetary easing. It's actually a pretty simple chain reaction. First, the central banks cut interest rates. That makes borrowing money way cheaper for, well, for everyone, companies and people. And here's the kicker for investors. With lower rates, the cash sitting in your savings account earns next to nothing. So you're naturally encouraged to move that money into stocks and bonds to find a better return. The bottom line, it pushes a whole lot of capital into the market. But wait, it's not just the central banks. Governments are getting in on the action too, with what's called fiscal stimulus. They are just pouring huge amounts of money into specific areas. Think defense, the green energy transition, and all the tech infrastructure we're going to need for this new AI world. And all that spending directly juices the growth in those exact sectors. And this donut chart here really gives us a great snapshot of the key players you need to be watching in 2026. You've got the central banks, of course. They're the ones turning the money taps on and off. Then you have these emerging markets, places like India and South Korea that are becoming the world's go-to for high-tech components. You've got the physical AI sector itself, the energy and utility companies that power everything, and of course, the defense contractors who are seeing a lot of that government spending. Okay, that's a lot of information, I know. So the big question is, what do you actually do with it? Let's turn all this into a real actionable strategy. Think of this next part as your 4-step playbook, your compass for navigating the 2026 frontier. And the playbook is actually pretty straightforward. Step 1 is assessment. Just take an honest look at your portfolio. Are you maybe a little too concentrated in US tech? Step 2 is selection. Start identifying some of those undervalued sectors we've been talking about and look at international markets. Step 3 is allocation. It's time to shift some of those funds, moving cash that's not doing much into bonds and some very specific stocks. And step 4, and this one is super important, is active management. This isn't a set it and forget it market. It's all about picking the individual company winners. And this quote right here, it just perfectly sums up that last point. The idea that you can just buy a generic index fund and call it a day, that might not be the best strategy anymore. And the reason is simple. Even within the same industry, you're going to see huge differences in performance from one company to the next. So the real goal is to find those specific companies that are crushing it, the ones that are actually using all this new tech and these market shifts to pull away from the pack. So let's boil this all down. What does this mean for your money, like right now? Here are the practical implications. Number one, look beyond just big tech to some of those old economy sectors that are getting a major tech upgrade. Two, you have to realize that holding cash is probably going to be a losing game. Three, really start to explore those Asian markets that are supplying all the high-tech components. And four, focus on companies that pay you to own them, the ones with regular dividends. All right, but no adventure into a new frontier is complete without a map of the dangers, right? To be a smart explorer here, you absolutely have to know the risks. So let's talk about what you need to watch out for. Okay, so it's super important to keep these potential risks on your radar. First, there's concentration risk. It's still a huge deal. You can't put all your eggs in one basket, even a new one. Then there's geopolitical instability. A conflict or a trade dispute could pop up and throw a wrench in everything. We also have to watch for inflation coming back, especially if government spending gets too high. There's even a risk of AI disappointment if all this hype doesn't turn into real profits fast enough. And finally, if you're investing overseas, you always have to be mindful of currency fluctuations. And that's a wrap. We've laid it all out. We've defined this new 2026 frontier, we've set the new mission objectives, we've mapped out the major forces, and we've even given you a playbook and pointed out the dangers. So, the map is officially in your hands now. The only real question left is, where are you going to explore first?